I used to live in an old house that had once been part of a military base. The house was nestled in a small, quiet town, far from any major city. Its creaky floors and peeling wallpaper had an eerie charm, but it was the attic that always unsettled me. Every time I ventured up there, something felt off. The air was always thick, and there was a faint smell of smoke lingering, though there were no traces of fire anywhere. At first, I thought I was imagining things. That was until I started hearing footsteps in the attic, even though I was the only one home. My dog would whimper at the door, staring up at the stairs, his body rigid with fear. It got to the point where I could no longer ignore it. One evening, after hearing a loud thud from above, I decided to confront whatever was up there. Armed with only a flashlight, I climbed the narrow stairs, my heart pounding in my chest. As I reached the top, I froze. The attic was cold, far colder than the rest of the house, and there, sitting in the corner, was a figure. It was a man in an old uniform, something from the 1940s, I would later guess. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollow and dark. He looked up at me as if he'd been waiting for me all along. My breath caught in my throat, but strangely, I wasn't afraid. It was as though his presence had a strange pull on me, a mix of sadness and longing. He didn't speak, but I could feel his sorrow. For days after, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching me. I'd catch glimpses of him in the corner of my eye, standing in doorways or at the foot of the stairs. It wasn't terrifying, but it was unnerving. I began to wonder if he was stuck there, trapped in some kind of purgatory. Maybe he had been a soldier who never returned home from war, or maybe he was just lost in his own memories. The true test came one night when my daughter was only a few months old. She began crying in the middle of the night, and no matter what I did, I couldn't calm her down. That's when I heard a voice, low and gravelly, telling me to go to her. It wasn't my voice. It wasn't anyone's voice I recognized. It was the voice of the man in the attic. Ignoring it at first, I tried to stay in bed, but the voice grew louder. It was as if it were coming from inside my head. It said, "She needs you." I rushed to my daughter's room and found her struggling to breathe. I panicked, but thanks to that strange feeling of urgency, I managed to call for help in time. They told me it was a good thing I had acted so fast. She'd almost suffocated in her sleep. From then on, I couldn't ignore the presence any longer. The man wasn't a threat. He had protected us. He had saved my daughter, and in some twisted way, I felt grateful to him. But my connection with him wasn't just limited to the attic. Over time, he seemed to follow me around the house. Once, during a particularly tense argument with my husband, I saw something fly across the room, just barely missing him. My husband, normally dismissive of such things, froze. His face turned pale, and he backed away slowly. He later admitted that every time he tried to raise his voice to me, it felt like a heavy weight pressed against him, almost as if someone was watching him, daring him to cross a line. The most disturbing part came the day we moved out. As I packed the last of our things, I glanced out the window one final time. I could have sworn I saw him standing by the door watching me. He raised a hand, not to wave, but to give a solemn nod, as if to say goodbye. I never saw him again after that, but I often wonder if he ever found peace. If he crossed over to wherever it is souls like his go, or if he's still waiting somewhere in the shadows of that old house.